Hi, I'm Kelly,
And I'm Madeline.
and welcome to Salt Sessions.
Hi there. Welcome to Salt Sessions. We're so glad to see you again. I'm Madeline,
And I'm Kelly.
and we've got a special guest today.
Yes,
And
we
her name is
do.
Lisa Moore, and she is an entertainment lawyer, entrepreneur, and lawyer to Cardi B.
Yes, woo
So
woo.
she's going to spill the tea on everything.
Not
Spill
all the tea.
Not all the tea.
Not all the tea.
Maybe
but
some.
Some
Maybe a
of the
little.
tea. Some
of the tea, yeah.
Some of the tea. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
No
And
doubt.
before we start, can you just talk about yourself and kind of how you started out as an entertainment lawyer?
Sure. Thanks for having me,
Thank you.
ladies. I grew up in Atlanta and went to UVA for law school. And the funny thing is, when I went to law school, I thought I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney.
Oh,
So I took like every Fourth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Eighth Amendment class. And then
remind me of what these amendments are.
I
gonna
don't
take
just
remember.
like, stop and seizure and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my third year, spring semester, I took an entertainment law class just randomly with Marty Silfen, who was like one of the entertainment law gods. Like he literally wrote the case book. And I thought, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
I love this. But I sort of thought, my only sibling had died not recently. And I thought I have to go back to Atlanta. I'd already accepted an offer at a large firm here doing white collar defense. And I thought, well, maybe in my next life. And then I started work. And the very first day at my law firm, this partner came up and said, I hear that you have an interest in entertainment law. I do. I have this huge entertainment practice and I need an associate. Do you want to be that person?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Just how fortuitous. I mean,
Wow.
that random. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so from day one of practicing, I've always had a hybrid, meaning I do a lot of transactional entertainment and I do a lot of entertainment litigation.
Don't know the difference, but okay.
Now, you've represented, some of the biggest names, obviously, in the industry. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about entertainers and talent?
I think that a lot of people assume that most high profile talent have a different persona when they're
Okay.
in front of the camera versus at home. And that's true for some.
Yeah.
But for many, like Cardi,
Yeah.
she is exactly who you see. And so I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people assume that some of it is just, they don't look at it and sound and act in any way the same when they're in a private space.
Mhm.
And that's usually not the case.
That's so interesting. Well, because I saw like her recent in LA, the baby, lips are sealed.
Yes.
But yeah, it was so funny though, because like to your point though, yeah, she does seem
That's why
like,
people love her
yeah,
because she's
she just does
so
look
So
at us.
real.
she's so real and
Yeah.
relatable.
Yeah.
You couldn't squelch that if you tried.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to pick your brain a little bit today about models and the things that models should look out for when signing a contract with an agency,
Mhm.
maybe, or like things that you would like to say that might help somebody that's thinking about signing to an agency.
Sure. Well, I thank you for raising this because it's a really important topic, and you
Yeah.
guys are doing, tremendous work for models and
Thank
potential
you.
models. So I applaud you.
Thank
That's why
you.
you guys are a great agency and love
Well,
representing
and
you.
Lisa is
Thank you.
she's our attorney.
Yes.
So
Yes.
our contract,
Yes.
pretty ironclad,
Yes.
thanks to
So I'm going to be talking about other agencies,
yes,
not
yes,
yours.
not ours. Yes.
I think most modeling contracts, have somewhere between 10 and 15 material terms. But I think if you're the model, they're really a handful to be thinking about. I always call it like the 4 T's, a C, and an E. So
Okay.
what is that reference?
Right.
How the term, how long, termination, how
Right.
can you get out?
yeah.
Can you get out? Transparency. Do you have clarity about payment terms, the commissions,
Mhm.
what expenses are going to be deductible? Um, you know, Territory. Is it just here in Georgia? Are you nationwide? Are you a worldwide exclusivity? And then compensation. I mean, most legitimate agencies, as you know,
Mhm.
it's a narrow, well dug channel for where you're commissioning, right?
Mhm.
But then I think sometimes you see some agencies that are just off the reservation, and they're really just you're like, what?
Love
That's
that. Off the
off the
reservation.
Off the
reservation.
reservation.
So I think you have to look at how compensation structured. Is it in line? Is it reasonable given our standards in the industry? Um, and then the big exclusivity. So
Right.
I
That's
think
the
that's
big
always a
one.
huge issue.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
those are sort of the primary issues. Those are kind of the building blocks, but
Right.
it's really important for models to have an experienced lawyer look at
Right.
that contract. I
Right.
mean, it's so
So, like,
critically important.
in regards to that, though, like, what red flags would you say are things
Totally.
that models need to be looking out for?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great question, Kelly. I think if an agency is pressuring you to sign
Mm-hmm.
and saying you don't need representation, If the agreement is super short, and so many times talent models or other types of talent will call and say, "Well, it's only a paragraph or a page." I'm like, "Well, that's generally really bad for you."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if somebody's saying, "Well, look, why don't you talk to our agency lawyer, and
Yeah.
then she can advise you." I
Yeah.
mean, there's clear conflict of interest.
Right.
So I think
Right.
if those are serious red flags. But then I think if the agency doesn't have a legitimate roster, like
Mm-hmm.
who is your talent?
Right.
Right.
And where are you placing them?
Right.
And what kinds of placements? Because not all gigs, not all jobs are the ones that are going to, further your career. And so I think
Right.
you really have to do your due diligence, not just only have an experienced lawyer look at the contract, but really investigate the people you're going to be working with. I mean,
Yeah.
are these people
I think that's so
reputable?
brilliant to look at the roster,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where are they getting placed?
Talk to
Because
them.
we
Talk to
talk about
current
that on
ones.
our
Yeah.
Instagram, on our social media all the time. Here are the placements we're making. These are the other agencies we're
Mm-hmm.
working with, and they're all, global top agencies
Mm-hmm.
that we're placing with. So
Yeah.
that's
Right.
exciting.
And like Salt, do you guys have the connections? I mean, do you
Right.
have, right?
We
And
just talked about that in our
yeah, it's
last
so
episode.
important,
Yeah.
obviously you all are highly respected around the world, but,
Mm-hmm.
not all agencies are, and not all agencies, can attract the same caliber of, other agent relationships or, the types of brands that you're working with. And so I think it's really important to do the business due diligence and have an experienced lawyer do the legal due diligence on the deal.
Right. Well, so you touched on exclusivity,
Hmm.
and that's a it's very
It's a hot
important. Obviously, it's
topic.
a hot topic.
Yeah,
Yeah. So could
Yeah.
you talk to some of our viewers and explain to them, like, what exclusivity is, and like kind of like what to look out for, or things to avoid, or kind of, or even like what's industry standard.
sure, sure, sure. So, I mean, it is a critically important
Mm-hmm.
topic, right? And really all it comes down to is, are you going to be my sole, representative?
Mhm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there anyone else that's going to be authorized to represent me or place me? And if it's non-exclusive, then in theory, I could do my own placements. I could work with as many agencies I want. If it's an exclusive, I'm really bound to you. I'm tied to you.
Right.
And if I let somebody else do my placements, I'll be in breach, right?
Right.
And I think the justification, the argument for exclusivity has shifted really,
Okay.
because when you think about the modeling agencies are gatekeepers, no different than art galleries,
Yeah.
record labels, book publishers. Back in the
Right. You
day,
have one.
right? You have
You have
one.
one.
You have
And
one.
so we're exclusive for 3 years.
Right.
And I think most modeling agencies that are legit are 3-year
Yeah.
contracts. And we are doing placement for models because we're a mother agency. And so
Mhm.
they give me the ability to place them in other markets with that.
Correct.
So I call myself the primary agency. And then the other agencies behind us are the secondary agencies. So it might be Salt in Atlanta, and then Wilhelmina in New York, or
Correct.
State in LA, or
Correct.
CGM in Miami, or whatever it is. But they're the secondaries. We're the primary. At the top of the Instagram, you typically will see the mother agency for the model, and then the other agencies that they're with, the secondaries behind them.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
And I think models shouldn't be afraid of exclusivity if it's the right
If
agency.
it's the right
Right.
agency.
Right.
If
I
it's the
think
right
some
fit.
people, have a knee jerk reaction to, oh, exclusivity bad, but that's not actually
Yeah.
the case always.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be working with a lot of, not legitimate agencies, and what are they really doing for your career,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
And it has to be a symbiotic relationship built on trust, built on experience, built on people that have excellent
We call it the
judgment.
Salt family.
Yes, we
Yeah,
do. Yes,
exactly,
we do.
exactly.
Yes.
So, we very rarely does this happen, but like what would you suggest, say a model is on set
Mhm.
and something just doesn't feel right,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
a photographer is wanting to take pictures that just may not,
May not feel right.
or it's just their kind of inner voice is just telling them something is off.
Yeah.
Like what would you say
Yeah.
to the model?
Such a good question. And, I really am. I always tell my kids this: we have to listen to our fear.
Yeah.
I know there have been times in my own life, I'm sure for the two of you, when you
Mhm.
listen to your fear and it's really gotten you out of a bad situation
Mhm.
that you didn't even know was happening
Mhm.
or unfolding. So I think a couple things. I think before you get to the job,
Mhm.
know the scope of the job.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You need to understand the parameters.
Like do your research,
right? Do
or
your
have your
what are
Right.
business
Ask your
terms?
agent
I'm supposed
for
to be here for
right.
X.
Mhm.
What are the objectives? For example, I go in thinking I'm doing a shoot for Spanx, and somebody wants to put me in like some
Lingerie,
other
yeah.
type of lingerie and
Mhm.
suspend me from, the ceiling,
chandelier.
right? I mean, something that just feels very not,
Yeah.
like a corporate brand.
Right.
So I think really understanding the ins and outs of what the job specs are first
Mhm.
before you get there. I think bringing somebody with you is always an excellent idea, whether it's, your lawyer, your rep, a friend, a family member. I think having somebody on site with you mitigates a lot of madness because we know, models for a long time have been vulnerable. I mean, we've had predatory photographers, we've had unsafe working conditions, we've had child models, unfortunately taking horrific,
We touched on that in
yeah,
the last
yeah.
episode that
Yeah.
we said that
So,
in general for us, if you're under 18, you're bringing your mom, you're
yes,
bringing your
as you
parents.
should be.
Yes.
And then if you're over 18, then typically the client unfortunately doesn't want
Yeah.
anybody else there.
Well, I know
But you
they
can,
don't want it, but
yeah,
I
but you can
think
bring them and
Yes.
they can be there.
I
Yes.
think they can be there,
Legally.
because I always
Yes.
say to clients, like, even if somebody's outside the door or
Right.
Outside the door.
outside the building, it doesn't
Yeah.
you just
From
didn't
having their
necessarily be right
presence,
beside the
the
photographer,
presence.
but
Yeah.
just knowing that somebody's a phone call away, right?
Right,
I
exactly.
think that's
That
helpful.
makes that's
And I think even if you've done those things and you get to a job and something just feels off, I think you have to use your words. I think you have to get your agency on the phone, mother agent on the
first and
phone.
foremost is getting that agent on the
Get the
phone.
agent on the phone immediately and articulate what, I know you may not know. There just may be some vague sense of something, but what are you feeling there too in your space? Are you feeling like this is not, be very specific with your agent to help them troubleshoot. Right.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
We had a model, this was a few years ago, who was, I, I, I think just 18, like newly turned
Right.
18, but was shooting at a beach. It was bathing suit, and she had a wardrobe malfunction. Those pictures, the photographer uploaded them. They ended up on the internet and ended up like in a lot of places.
Mm.
Is there any recourse, or like what would you suggest? I mean, I know it's hard because it's, with wardrobes and things moving and stuff. So it's, you want to try to mitigate that. But of
Yeah.
course, it's not always
Yeah.
going to be perfect.
It's a great question. I think there's several things. I think if somebody is using your name or likeness or those pictures that you're sort
Yeah.
of describing, hypothetical pictures, without your permission, they don't have written permission. You didn't foolishly sign some model release that says you can
can use
photographer, you
anything.
can use
Yes.
it, whoever you want to give it to
Yes.
can use it for any purpose in perpetuity, like something insane, right? Assuming you haven't done that,
Yep.
then there's lots of legal avenues we could pursue, a violation of rights of privacy, rights of publicity. If it's like a revenge situation, like a revenge
Well,
porn, like
that's
if some, there's, things akin to that. But there are things as lawyers that we could do. We could send a cease and desist. If I'll give you an example, though, it was a photographer and they took the photo and put it in a, exhibition, like a fine art exhibition, you're going to have a harder time. Like there are states have
Yeah.
protections, both that emanate from case law and some from statutes, that give protections for type artistic works, right? So
Creativity.
it's not just what image or what likeness is used, but it's how it's used, right? Like,
Yeah.
am I taking your image and putting it on a T-shirt, or am I putting in Jackson Fine Art because I'm a fine art photographer and I snapped you on the street and you may not like it, but that's a very different legal situation.
Mhm.
Interesting. So that would be like legal. Like if a photographer just shot a picture of you walking down Peachtree Street.
I mean, you don't
They-
really have a reasonable
Yeah.
expectation of privacy in a street, right? And
Yeah.
it depends on, again, how they're using it. Like if they take a picture when you're walking down the street and put it on coffee mugs or selling it as wallpaper, I mean, you get the point.
Right.
That's a commercial
right.
use. That's not
Right,
that's not an
right.
artistic use. There's,
So the
there's-
model would then be
yeah.
would be given compensation for that.
In theory,
In
if we
theory.
pursued it, yes. And so it's a pretty nuanced area because you've got the intersection of publicity law, privacy law, First Amendment concerns,
goodness.
and then there may
This is
be
why I'm not a lawyer.
there
Yeah,
may
I
be,
don't
there
understand
may be
all of
state
this.
statutes that are implicated. So we just have to do a pretty exacting analysis. It's not a one size fits all, right? I mean, for example,
Yeah.
if I had a telephoto lens and I put it in your bedroom and you have it, I'm intruding into the seclusion of your home. You have
Right.
an expectation of privacy.
Of course.
So I can't do anything with those photographs,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So in the modeling world, there's been a huge influx of, influencers and brand collaborations and brand deals. What would you suggest to a model if, say, somebody DMs her, and has this opportunity, for a brand deal? Like,
I always tell the models, like first and foremost, and I'm interrupting you, but like I always tell the models first and foremost to come to me when they
Yes.
get DMs.
Yes.
So like always come to your agent and tell them, because a lot of these DMs are brands and they want to go around the modeling agency because they don't want to pay
Mhm.
like a commission
That's
to that
right.
agent.
Mhm.
And so they go around and they directly DM them. And I always say, bring that to me because we can negotiate higher rates, first of all. Second of all, you're under contract with us. So you can't like negotiate your own deals.
Right.
So it's really
Right.
important to like always,
Bring it to your agent, and then I think have a parallel conversation with your lawyer.
right.
I mean, these people, we represent so many influencers, and you see that they think, well, it's just this one off. I don't need a contract. No, you still need a contract, right?
Right.
or they're just signing something because they don't want to be the bad guy or annoying. And it's like, if you want people to treat you like a professional, you have to use a
You have
professional
to.
contract.
Right.
Do
Right.
you understand the FTC regulations around disclosures? Like what
Right.
disclosures have to be made?
It's so important. Yeah,
So,
can
I
you touch
mean,
base? Could you touch about that for a
yeah,
minute?
sure.
Because yeah, some people may not
Sure. I mean,
understand. Yeah.
people don't understand that, even if you're not paying me, but you're giving me product or there's
Mhm.
some relationship, right?
Mhm.
There's some value that I'm getting that has to be disclosed so it doesn't, mislead consumers, right?
Right.
And what you're saying has to be true. And so, getting yourself knowledge, getting familiar with the FTC regs is really important.
Yeah.
Agencies should do that. Your lawyer should be educating you, and you should be educating yourself because what we see sometimes is these influencers will sign a deal where, like, for example, the brand may have given them infringing content or scripted something for them to say,
Right.
and
It's
they're
not authentic.
and they're liable for it,
Yeah.
Makes
right?
sense.
Because they
Right.
signed a terrible deal that said, regardless of what claims emanate out of this, it's on you, the talent, or you, the influencer, or you, the model, and not the brand. So you really have to those contracts need a lot of work generally.
Yeah. Do you feel like they're more they're more difficult to like pursue legally, like versus say like a publishing rights contract or say a music. I mean,
I would sort of analogize it to the difference in like when we do a feature film versus we do reality TV show.
right.
Like the
Okay.
reality TV show contracts are like the Wild West. They're crazy. They can come over looking insane. And I would
Okay.
say like these influencer deals, like especially for online, or brands wanting them to do some push out a piece of content, they tend to be more Wild West.
Okay.
And so they need a closer eye on them
Okay.
because I've seen so many influencers that have thrown their career away before they started.
Yeah,
Right?
I've
Like
seen that
you
happen with
signed this
reality
horrific deal,
television.
you foreclosed yourself from all these other potentially lucrative opportunities. You're in some exclusive with some terrible deal, and it's a fly by night situation. You're never going to get paid. It's just so I
Right.
think people don't take those small jobs seriously
Yeah.
enough. You have to mitigate the risk and really make an educated decision with your agent
Right.
and
Yeah,
your lawyer.
exactly.
Is this
Because
what's
I've
really in
had
my career's best interest?
Yeah,
Right.
Maybe
I've had
not.
situations in the past where right after I started Salt,
Mhm.
I had a model that came to me and wanted to do a reality television show. And I was like, oh no, please don't do that.
Madeline.
Please don't do that. And no,
Madeline.
please don't do that. And they did. And it came back to bite us because then we had a commercial print client that had them booked on a job and released them the day before the job because they saw the Real Housewives of Atlanta and saw them on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no. So
Mhm.
I try to like run it by you or run it by somebody and
You
run
got to be
flag
so
ball.
careful. We had a talent who, before they came to our firm, signed a deal for a reality show that gave this little production company an exclusive on all mediums,
Oh.
not just all unscripted television,
All
not
the
just all film
mediums.
and television, any
Everything.
medium within which their name or likeness could be exploited. I mean, that's the whole world, right?
Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
everything.
right. This is a smart person,
And they signed it
and they
away.
signed it away.
So were you able to do anything? I'm sure you were. Knowing you, Lisa, found a way. You found a way. Well, that's why you're ours,
Well,
Yes.
thank you.
That's why we have you.
Right.
So we have in our contracts, and you've helped us, of course. But do you think it's a good idea, though, for models in general to have outside counsel just to review? Because, ours is great, but,
Yeah.
a lot of other agencies may be, somewhat unsavory.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know not every agency wants to hear that answer,
Of course.
but if you care about your models, then you would want them to.
Right.
And if the models care about the agencies, then they want the agencies to be, doing the things that you all need to do to be successful. Because
Right.
again, these are symbiotic relationships, right?
Mhm.
It's not a zero-sum game. So I think if an agency is suggesting that you don't need to get counsel, for me, that's a major
That's a
red
red
flag.
flag.
I think so too.
That's a
Yeah.
major red flag,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say this has been great. Like, I just appreciate you like coming in today
Of
and like
course. Oh
giving
my
us
gosh,
like
I'm
all this
happy to.
insight
Yes,
because
Too.
we think you're amazing.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys are a great agency, and
Well, thank you.
I-
Thank you. I do want to ask one question. So, with everything being online now, I feel like, it's just with Instagram and TikTok and like, are there things to look out for? Like, how can you differentiate like a legitimate opportunity
Mhm.
Versus
versus
something
a
that's like
scammy?
a
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Is there
yeah.
anything they can
It's
models
such
can
it's
do?
such a great question. I think it goes back to talking to your agent and talking to your lawyer
Yeah.
because brands like these jobs, you can do business due diligence on them too, apart from the agreement, right? That's
Right.
papering it up. I mean, you can see like what has this led to? What types of like what does the monetization of this generally look like for people doing similar things, right?
Mhm.
And the other thing I think models need to think about is now with AI, you've really got
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
you've
We just
We
really
talked.
try to we talked about the last
Okay,
yes,
can you
episode.
please
Yeah,
talk
yes,
about
talk about
yes,
AI?
AI
okay.
because we
Yes.
try to like scratch that out of any
Yes.
contract. We
Yes,
don't
you
want
have to.
AI.
And in addition to scratching it out, you actually need to affirmatively say you do not have the right to use my name and likeness or indicia or anything else,
Yeah.
with respect to generative AI or training models or as any part of the results and proceeds of any generative AI.
Oh my goodness. I need to write that
So
down.
there's
Yeah, I do too.
there's a provision that we literally
Yeah.
put in all of our contracts for our talent, regardless of whether it's a model or a writer or a,
It was actually an
actor.
agency in LA that brought that to my
Yeah.
attention like
Yeah.
maybe a year ago. And I love this agency. And the agency director said to me, she goes, well, we cross out anything that says they're going to use AI within
Yeah.
the contract.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that. I mean, like in some of the, castings that we're getting, they're putting, clauses in there that they're,
They're going
that
to be able
that
to
they
use
could.
it for
So
AI.
of
So we
course
have to
we
cross that
don't.
out.
So
You have to
well,
cross it out, but
well,
you
we don't
also have to
submit.
go to the
Right.
other step of
Yeah.
crossing it out and affirmatively saying they
Denying or
cannot do it.
yeah.
Right.
And that's super important because even though we have some states that have introduced legislation to prevent, unauthorized uses like that,
Mhm.
we're not there yet. And we've got to use our contractual tools to mitigate those risks
I agree.
until the law in every state catches
Catches
up.
up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Or until
Right.
there's a federal law that would
I hope
really,
that they're. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy because we
Because I've seen some clients recently, like that do want to use AI. They'll come to us with a higher rate. They'll say, "Okay, instead of offering the model 2,000 for the day, we'll offer her $4,000 or $5,000 for the day,
Mhm.
but we get to use AI for a year with this person." And
but,
it's going to go
but
longer
and
than
that
that.
could be
It's going to
multiple.
be
Right,
like,
right.
Well, and it also
yeah,
could be, fall, winter, spring, summer. It could be
they'll just
for
use
it
those
could all
same
campaigns,
like
for
poses and just
campaigns.
stick the
Yeah.
little clothes
So
on with each one.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we are not. Yeah, so we
We're
are
not that
not
agency.
we are not booking our models on anything that
Good.
They're not a good
AI.
I'm
app.
We
very
don't
glad to hear that.
because then if all it takes is one agency to say yes, to do that, and a lot of agencies, will chase the dollar,
Right,
unfortunately,
right.
but it hurts everyone. It
Of
hurts
course.
the
It
models. It
dilutes
hurts
the
the
model's
industry.
brand, career, the
Absolutely.
agency's brand. And that relates to something else. Like if you were a model in New York right now, like today,
Mhm.
not a year ago, you should be aware that New York has passed a New York Fashion Workers Act, right? You
Yes.
now have, as agencies in New York, have to register
Yes.
and there are caps on commissions. And so there may be state specific things that models in New York need to
Need to know.
and agencies need to educate themselves that,
Right.
for example, we
Right.
don't have here in Georgia.
Right.
We don't yet.
Right.
No.
So what if a new model is just starting out,
Mhm.
like what kind of advice would you give her
Yeah.
or
I would
him?
say get a lawyer earlier than you think, right?
Mhm.
Because, we may want to form a loan out company for you, a furnishing company,
Right.
right? And give you a corporate shield.
Right.
We may,
Can you talk about that a little
Yeah, I
bit?
don't
The
even know what that
EIN,
is.
that's
Sure.
EIN,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so all talent, regardless of what medium
Mhm.
they're working in, really should have loan out companies.
Mhm.
So if I'm signing an agreement, instead of me, Lisa Moore, the talent, it might be, Lisa Moore Entertainment LLC as the signatory. So
Yes.
I'm having a corporate shield. God forbid I get sued. In theory, as long as I'm minding my corporate formalities,
Mhm.
they're not coming after me personally. They may be coming after my loan out company.
Mhm.
There can be tax reasons. There can be lots of reasons,
Yes.
lots of smart reasons to have a loan out company, a furnishing company. Generally, the LLC is the preferred vehicle, but again, you need to talk to your own lawyer about that. So that's the first thing.
Let me ask, should talent be earning a certain amount of money before forming that?
Yeah.
Or no? Because
It depends. I
okay.
say if you're doing an agreement with anybody, even if it's a gratis, meaning a free,
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
giving you Sam's Pizza Parlor the right to put my face on the menu or on the wall for a month for free.
Yeah.
That needs to be papered. I
Okay.
mean, it really does. That sounds silly, but it's true. You can really get yourself in some bad situations where people say, "Oh, I had an implied license," or verbal contracts can be binding, right?
Right.
With some exceptions. Um, so I think have a lawyer in place. But the most important thing I think you can do if you're a model is make sure you're working with the right agency,
Yeah.
like Assault. I
Thank
mean,
you.
Oh,
no,
thank
really,
you.
I'm being so sincere
Thank
because
you.
so many times
They don't
models,
have the
they're
best interest of the models all the time.
no, they don't. They don't. And they're not doing their due diligence. There's so many ways. Sort of like with sports. It's like, well, it's good to talk to people that are currently on the roster. They're going to tell you. But you know who's really going to tell you the truth? People that are no longer on the roster, that used to play for that coach or that
Right.
transferred. Like,
And
there's
I've
so
seen
many
that a
different
lot,
pools of
Lisa. Like
people,
over the
you know?
years, like a lot of our models have like DM'd other models or like
Yeah.
contacted our
Yeah.
models and said, "Hey, what do you really think of Kelly and Madeline? Are they good agents?
Yeah.
Like, do they do a good job for you?"
Yes.
And I have to say, like, I really am so happy that we do have a really high moral compass over here, and
And a
that
great
we have a
reputation
great
in the
reputation.
industry.
You do.
Yeah.
So,
You're
and
doing
that's
it the right
everything is
way.
reputation.
Yeah.
It is, and
Yeah.
Thank you.
we don't throw models under the bus. We put them first.
Right.
We're their advocates. So
You
we're their
are.
advocate
You are.
for everything.
Just by doing this. I
Yeah.
mean, you're
We're
helping your
trying
own
to help.
models and so many, untold others. But so many models don't choose the right agency.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
true.
And
really
it's
sad.
the industry is such a small world too. It's
Mhm.
like if an agent is doing something unsavory or if a model is,
It gets around.
it gets
Oh,
around.
yeah, it's a
It
very
gets
small
around.
Yeah, and I tell Kelly all the time, I'm like, and agents switch agencies every 4 years. It's musical
Yeah.
chairs.
It is.
So like
Yeah.
they'll be at one agency one day and 4 years later they'll be at another. So be nice to everybody and keep
That's
yourself
right.
like
That's
above
exactly
board.
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yep.
We only have one reputation.
I
One.
know.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your legal wisdom with us. And before we go, do you have like one funny story? You don't have to name drop, but like any funny stories or anecdotes or anything that's happened recently?
Recently, oh gosh, let me think.
And I'm putting you on the
Um,
spot here. I don't think that was in my
Well, something that is actually kind of funny. It was yesterday, I think. I'm so busy that I'm not on my clients' like their socials all
Yeah.
the time.
Okay.
But once in a blue moon, like I'll go on, or somebody will ping me with something. So somebody had sent me that Cardi had put on one of her one of her threads, only like 1 million people on it,
Oh,
a
nice.
clip of she and I from trial, right? And like,
Oh, I saw that.
did you see the one where
I
like our heads are
I
doing
did.
this?
I did.
Oh my God.
You were on the steps of the courthouse.
It was so fun. This was actually in the courthouse, and she
Okay.
puts this video on. And then the thing that is riotiously funny, there are like tens of thousands of people commenting that it was Cardi and Sia.
They thought you were Sia?
Yes, and I'm like,
Oh, I didn't see
yes,
that
they
part.
thought everybody thought it was Sia, and I was laughing. I was like texting my kids, like, "Oh my God, I never thought I looked like Sia. Girls, boys, son, do I look like Sia?
That
Girls, do I look like Sia?"
Okay, but that's
so
a
funny.
flex. I
Yeah.
feel like that's a flex,
I
right?
feel like it's a flex too.
I mean, I thought that was
You
funny.
can tell that she's a boy mom too because she said flex.
Okay. I'm like, bruh,
Bruh,
bruh. Oh
bruh,
my gosh.
yeah.
And 6'7". If I hear
What
when
does 6'7" mean exactly?
nothing,
Somebody
means,
decode it for me. I
it
swear.
means nothing.
So thank you so much for joining us for another session of Salt Sessions. And we had so much fun today with our attorney, Lisa Moore,
Yes.
who gave us a lot of really good tips of what to look out for and what to do. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us.
Thanks for
Yes,
having me,
thank
guys.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks.
Yes, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Next time. Bye.